Hello and welcome to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we celebrate films that we think might be underrated, underappreciated, or sometimes we just want to talk about them. I am Josh Hallam and I'm joined as ever by my brilliant co-host, Alice Oliver. Alice, how are you?
Brilliant co-host. You've never put the word brilliant before that. Are you feeling Christmassy? Are you feeling generous?
Christmassy. My above average co-host. No, I am feeling Christmassy. It is the Christmas special. And I am very excited to say we're joined by a brilliant guest. We are joined by the wonderful Rosie Holt. Rosie, how are you?
I'm great, thank you, especially after that introduction.
I was trying to think of like some sort of rosy cheek metaphor. There must be something in there.
No, I'm really glad you
didn't. Didn't do it. I resisted.
Didn't do it.
I resisted. Are you a Christmassy person, Rosie? You like Christmas, or are you not really bothered?
Oh yeah, no, I love Christmas.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, what's the
got all the presents and the food, and then the Christmas movies.
Oh yeah.
And then it's also a more sociable time of year.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Though obviously sociability is a bit limited in the current climate, but I love it. It's great. Count me in.
What's the sort of standard Rosie Holt Christmas look like then?
So I've got a very large family. I'm one of 5. And so it's usually quite loud and noisy and gluttonous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also all my family drink too much. I'm not too bad, but I get like drawn into their web of alcoholism.
That's the thing on Christmas Day. You feel invincible, don't you? It's like you eat so much and you're like, do you want one of these? Yeah, pass it over. Pass it. Absolutely. So like, it may or may not be my birthday on Boxing Day. It is my birthday on Boxing Day. And last year it was quite a big birthday. And I drank way too much on Christmas Day and spent the first part of my big birthday just hungover. Because I just thought, I'm invincible. I'm Superman. I can drink whatever I want, it's a classic male problem, I know. But yeah, so yeah. What about you, Alice? Are you a Christmassy person?
I am a bit of a Christmassy person, yeah. When we were growing up, my mum used to just go to so much effort to kind of do the house up really nice, and we were always playing games and stuff and going on winter walks. Because where I grew up in North Wales, it used to actually like snow properly a lot. So we'd often have white Christmases. So that was always very magical. I did go through a couple of years of being a bit of a grouch. And when it came to presents and stuff, I just like, oh, why would I waste my money on buying presents and Christmas cards? They're so bad for the environment and all this, blah, blah, blah. But now I've mellowed out a bit again now. And this year especially, I've like gone to town on my Christmas shopping. So my family are in for a treat, and they won't be expecting it. It's almost as if it was some giant plan that I'd hatched up. It'd be like, oh, we'll never get a good gift off Alice again, but here I am. So yeah, no, I do like Christmas a lot, and it's about the family so much, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you said there, Rosie, like you've got a big family. Like I'm quite close to my family, and it just so happens to be the only time of year that we've all got the day off. So then you just get to see everyone, which I like. Rosie, I did want to ask, what's your go-to Christmas drink when you are drinking on Christmas Day?
Oh, my go-to Christmas drink. Well, on Christmas Day we always have champagne at midday.
Oh,
that's what
lovely.
It's all about.
Classy move that.
Pretty classy.
What's yours, Alice?
So we have avocado and sherry mixed together.
Why?
Avocado. What and sherry?
Avocado and sherry. You know,
is that like an avocado?
It's not like an avocado, but I can see why you would think that. But no, it's I think it is eggnog essentially. Like it's definitely eggy. It's super eggy and it's got booze in it. And then we mix it with sherry. And this was something that my nan used to do when she was young. And then my mum started doing it. I remember when I was a kid and she'd drink it and be like, that's disgusting. And then you get a bit older and it's like, oh, actually, this is delicious. And you get absolutely wankered off one because it's 2 alcohols mixed together. And it goes down so smooth. So you can literally just keep going all day. But yeah, I love it. And that is a very Christmas treat as well because it's so decadent. So you wouldn't drink that all year round.
No.
That is just for Christmas.
You're not ordering that in a pub, are you?
You're not. That's
a Del Boy order, that, isn't it? Can I have an avocado and sherry, please?
It's delicious if you like gross things. What about you, Josh?
What's my standard? It's not it's not something I would ever describe on a podcast as eggy and boozy and wonderful, which is yours.
I'm not interested then.
Mine would probably be, do you know what? I like red wine. And I always move on to a bit of port as well.
Oh, yeah, I do like
a bit of port.
I like a bit of port. Bit of port and cheese.
And a cigar.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then we go to the drawing. We go to the drawing room.
We sitting on leather armchairs.
And tell the women to piss off.
Yeah. So, we do always also start with a random question, but as it's Christmas, I just thought I'd go with a standardy Christmas question. Start with you first, Alice. What is the best and worst Christmas song?
Listen, I love so many of the Christmas songs. Just to name a few: Greg Lake, I Believe in Father Christmas, In Dulce Jubilo by Mike Oldfield. I love Cortina's Winter Wonderland. That's a nice one. I even love that Coldplay Christmas song that they did. And I'm not the biggest Coldplay fan in the world, but I love their Christmas song. The Pogues, obviously, Fairy Tale in New York. Cliff Richard has got some bangers. He's got a full Christmas album that you could just listen to from start to finish and not get bored. Worst one. So Do They Know It's Christmas does piss me off a little bit.
Oh, it's for charity.
Yeah, but it's a bit...
You hate starving people.
It's not that. It's kind
of course they know it's Christmas.
It's a bit that. Yeah, it's a bit that. It's like, do they know it's Christmas? It's like, well, no, because you haven't forced Christianity upon them yet. Maybe that's why they don't know it's Christmas. Do you know what I mean? So I just kind of... I don't love the whole attitude and ethos behind it, really. Obviously, like, all for the charity aspect. That's why I try to not get too pissed off when people release terrible charity singles, because it's like, the money's going to a good cause, it's fine. But yeah, if I was going to pick a worst Christmas song, that would be one of them.
Okay. What about you, Rosie?
Well, best one is Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Classic.
What a banger. Yeah. Worst one, I don't know. I mean, I don't like, the Darkness one? They did one.
You don't
that is controversial.
I just remember finding it really annoying.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
No, I don't like it. No, I find it really annoying. And also, I don't think it counts as a Christmas song, but it was a Christmas number one, the JCB one. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, Liz Loppy.
Said I'm Luke, I'm 5, my dance Bruce Lee, drives me round.
About getting bullied. It's about getting bullied, that is, or something like that. Yeah.
Well, maybe he should get bullied if he's going to write, stupid songs like that.
Yeah. Well, there's quite a few Christmas songs that aren't Christmas number ones, because you've got that. Do you remember Killing in the Name of?
Yeah,
remember that whole thing about 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Fight the Power, except it was the same company.
Yeah. Simon Cowell's still fucking raking it in, isn't he? What's yours, Josh? Best and worst?
Best one, I do like the Pogues. I do like a bit of... I quite like it, like the Paul McCartney one. And I quite like a bit of Shaky.
Oh, Simply Having Wonderful Christmas Time.
Yeah.
I was like, I couldn't think then. I was like, Paul McCartney one.
My favourite, I'm going to have to say, is Last Christmas.
Yeah,
I do, and I like Mariah Carey as well. And my worst one, for a similar reason as Rosie, is I cannot stand, and I'll probably get a lot of hate for this. I don't like E17.
No, that's a brilliant one.
But it's not a Christmas song. It's just a Christmas.
It has
Christmas.
But it has Christmas bells in it.
It's got bells, and the music video's got snow in it. And they're stood there in their big coats.
What about if I change it to Frankie Goes to Hollywood? I don't like that one either.
No, that one's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful song. Josh, your tastes are just terrible. Oh my god.
I'm sticking by it. It's Stay Another Day, E17.
This is a safe space. You're allowed to say what you want, and I can't get pissed off at you.
It's almost like you could be punished in this day and age for having an opinion. Anyway, we will move on to talking about this week's film, which is Batman Returns from 1992. So spoiler warnings if you've not seen it. Rosie, you picked this one. So what is Batman Returns about, and why did you pick it?
Oh, fuck. Right, well... so I love this movie. It was one of the, when you were a kid and you just had there was only about 7 videos in your house. Mm-hmm. And so you just watched them over and over again. So this was one of them. So I actually watched it probably a bit early, before I was age appropriate. But I love it because it's like, it's a superhero movie, but it's not really. It's more like a gothic fairy tale, which I really like. And it's just got great performances. Synopsis of the film. Well, I'm really bad at doing things like this. So you might have to stage an intervention.
Sure.
If it gets rambly and strange. So, and also, I don't know how much of a synopsis do you want. Okay, well, just don't ignore me. Okay, I'm just going to carry on. Right. So the film opens with this baby being born, and we know there's something really wrong with the baby, and everyone's scared of the baby, and the baby's like put in this little cage, and then his parents, and the baby eats the cat, which is not a good sign. Babies shouldn't do that. And so the parents take the baby and they throw it over a bridge into the water, and then the baby gets washed up in the sewers, and a load of penguins are like, "Hi, baby." They don't speak. The penguins don't speak.
But if they could, that is what they would say.
Yeah, that is what they'd say.
They'd say, "Hi, baby. Let's do this." Fast forward 33 years. It's Christmas time in Gotham City, and Max Schreck, who's Christopher Walken, who's like this kind of evil corporate guy. I don't know, can't give much more of a description than that, is doing a speech about something or other. And then suddenly the city is overrun with crazy clown people who are like shooting everyone, and they're like trashing Gotham City. And of course, Batman comes out, and Batman's like sorting them out. It's all great. And then in all this mayhem, Max Schreck gets kidnapped and taken down to the sewers where he meets Penguin. And Penguin's like, "Look, we can do a deal. You can help me sort of go back to the normal world." I told you I was so good at this. And,
you're doing really well, Rosie. To believe in yourself.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. This is like a director's commentary of Batman Returns.
Thanks, guys. I'll start slimming it down in a second. Anyway, so he's like, "We can do a deal. I'll blackmail you, and you let me, go and make my mark in the city above." And so they stage this plan where it looks like somebody tries to steal the baby of the mayor, and then Penguin saves the baby. So everyone's like, "Oh, Penguin's amazing. He's great." And Penguin's like, "Oh, I just want to be loved." But Batman's watching the TV, and he's like, "Shh, no, don't like it. Don't trust it." Meanwhile, Max Schreck pushes Michelle Pfeiffer, his supposedly dowdy secretary, out of a window because she is snooping around and finding dodgy things about the company. She gets rescued by cats, becomes Catwoman. So how much detail should I go in this film? Yeah, that's the film.
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think that's the best synopsis we've had.
That was good. That was a roller coaster. I loved it.
That was absolutely great. So,
Thanks,
why have you
guys.
picked this? Because you think it's underrated, underappreciated, and you just want to talk about it because you love it?
I love it, but I feel like it's become, now there's been so many Batman films have come out, I feel like it's sort of got forgotten a bit. And when people talk about the Burton films, they always talk about the first one with Jack Nicholson, which is brilliant. But I feel the second one feels less loved now. And I think it's time we brought it back. Also, it's a Christmassy movie, arguably. It's set in the Christmas festivities, and the last line is "Merry Christmas" or something like that.
Yes, no, the first line is "Merry Christmas," and the last line is "Goodwill to all men and women." Because I did pick up on that. I was like, there you go. Because I was like, I hadn't seen it, so I wasn't sure. Like, oh, is it a proper Christmas film, or is it just a film that's kind of set around Christmas? Die Hard-esque. But the whole thing of it being Christmas is a huge part of the narrative, actually. And it's just interesting that its book ended with Merry Christmas and then goodwill to all men and women. And then in between is just like some horrible circumstances. And I just thought that was really cool.
Also, it's about a grotesque villain trying to kidnap children on Christmas Eve or something. Like, what's more Christmassy than that?
Opposite Santa. He's the reverse.
He's the reverse Santa, right? So, that answers the first question, Alice. So you'd not seen this before. That surprises me. I thought you'd have seen this before.
I hadn't seen it, and I thought I had. Turns out what I actually had seen was the one afterwards that was with Val Kilmer.
Batman Forever.
I think.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
So
that's not as good at all.
Yeah.
So I got confused. I thought that was it. And I started watching it and I was like, I have definitely never, ever seen this film. So yeah, I was really intrigued. As soon as I know that I haven't seen something, like, I'm just like, oh, I'm super intrigued then, because I love seeing things I've not seen before. Josh, I assume you had seen this one.
I mean, I've been pretty open before about my affection for Batman and comic book characters.
Yes.
Batman is my favourite. I will always be there every time a Batman film comes out, usually at midnight, dragging my poor partner to it to go and watch it. So I was so pleased when Rosie picked this, because we had a bit of a chat over email about, what should she pick, and she was going to pick like a more traditional Christmas film like It's a Wonderful Life, and then she mentioned Batman Returns, and my interest was just like, Batman Returns.
You don't say.
Batman Returns, you say. So that's what she picked in the end, and I was so glad, because I have such affection for these films. I was quite interested to watch it again with a more critical eye, because I watch this every year. I watch this every Christmas. And normally it's just one of those sort of films where you put on and you just enjoy it for the entertainment. I've never had to look at it and actually pick what I did or didn't like about it before, so I was quite interested to go into it with that more critical eye. So if you hadn't seen this before, Alice, what were your sort of first impressions? What did you think?
So I really, really enjoyed it. I think there was a lot to like about it. I think Rosie summed it up quite nicely there. It is this dark, gothic, but also festive fairy tale. Had similar energy in parts, I thought, to Nightmare Before Christmas, in terms of some of the music, in terms of some of the imagery, that sort of thing. My favourite thing about it was Catwoman, was Michelle Pfeiffer's character. So I've got a lot of affection for Michelle Pfeiffer. Rosie, I don't know if you've seen the masterpiece that is Grease 2, but I think that is a phenomenal
here we go
film.
again. Every opportunity.
So, just got to bring it up. So she has a very special place in my heart, and I really, really liked her character. And for the most part, it felt like the film was really more about her origin story. She starts off as this quite timid, as this quite repressed secretary for this evil guy. What she wears is quite, subtle. She just sort of fades into the background, a bit of a wallflower kind of character. And then she sort of dies, or she appears to die, and then the cats come to her rescue, do something, and then she's got these superpowers. So there's a little bit of supernatural things going on there, which is interesting for a Batman film, because usually they are just villains with guns, or villains doing things, but I felt like there was this quite supernatural air to how she got her power. And then she becomes Catwoman, and it's just extraordinary. And she's confident, and she's sexual, and she's athletic. And
she's amazing.
Like, yes.
Badass, isn't she?
I loved it. She was the absolute highlight for me in this film. But I did think all the performances were pretty damn good. Great cast.
Oh, it's a great... That costume all the costumes, to be fair, look like an absolute nightmare, but particularly the Catwoman one, I believe, from what I've read, she could only do about half an hour before they had to...
Yeah. Oh my God.
take something...
Because
she was vacuum sealed into it.
Oh,
so she put it on, and then they vacuum sealed into it. I know that because wasn't there a video a couple of years ago, because she found the whip while she was moving house, and she could still do a couple of tricks with it.
Oh, really?
She's amazing in this, Michelle Pfeiffer,
brilliant.
I think she's absolutely incredible. So what are some of the things you particularly like about this then, Rosie?
Well, I'm going to echo Alice. I think Michelle Pfeiffer she's so great in this movie. It's so cool. Also, there's loads of supernatural elements. I mean, her character dies like 9 times, and she's just like, fuck you, I'm a cat. So, and also, I know elements I've forgotten. I was like, God, Penguin is a Me Too nightmare. Oh. God, what an absolute perv that
is.
That little guy is.
I really completely missed that. That there's a few characters in this film, Penguin being the main one, who was just so horny.
Yeah,
horny,
unbelievable. Because he comes on to every single woman he meets. And then Catwoman also makes a bit of a reference about Batman basically having a bit of a semi on at one point. I was like, imagine watching this in like the McDonald's Happy Meal department going, we're supposed to do with this? What do you want us to do? Everyone's like a gothic nightmare, and you want us to make Happy Meal toys out of it.
Well, also, the Penguin, he kills Batwoman, she's not in it. He kills Catwoman because she's like, there's no way I'm sleeping with you. And he's like, okay, bye. Yeah. Fuck you. Die.
attaches it to an umbrella and presumably is going to fly her off to death.
Yeah.
What do you think of like the look of it? Because I think one of the beauties of characters like Batman is there's so many different versions, and I think this Gotham is one of this Gotham and the one from the previous Batman film, and also a little bit the animated series, which they did around the same time, is my favorite version of Gotham because it looks so like Art Deco and expressionist, and it's really gothic. And I think they do a really good job of capturing like the mood of the character with the look and the music as well. I mean, Danny Elfman's Batman score.
Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
Oh, what a guy.
It's one of my favorite pieces of cinematic music, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's really good. And it is so, the set is amazing. Yeah, Gotham City is, I was trying to think of a better word than gothic. Gotham City is gothic in this. It's super gothic. And it's so atmospheric. And there's like all the mist and then the zoo that's just like covered in ice and that looks like any animal in there died long ago. It's great.
There's no subtlety to it at all, to any part of it, to like the locations, the sets, the props, the costumes. Everything is so over the top, but in a really dramatic and well-crafted way. At no point does it become cheesy, and at no point do you think it's ever too much. There's one moment where they walk into the office of Christopher Walken's character, so Max, and he sat at just the most enormous table, like a bigger table than anyone could ever possibly want. And the person he's having a meeting with is sat on the complete opposite side. It might even be Batman or Bruce Wayne at that point. And it just sort of plays with the kind of dynamics of a scene and kind of where characters are in relation to one another and the kind of different power dynamics that there are between characters, especially with someone like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, who starts off in one place and then becomes a completely other thing. I like how exaggerated some of the extras and some of the sort of background stuff that's going on is. So every time that Max is around, you get these crowds and crowds of people. Sometimes it's paparazzi. Sometimes it's just like people come to listen to his speech and they just go absolutely apeshit for him. Like he barely has to say anything in a speech and everyone's like, "Wee!" And then later on when Penguin becomes like the guy of focus, he does a little bit of a speech and everyone's like, "Wee!" And it just kind of highlights the kind of like vapid, superficial nature of the mob and of the masses. Like people will lap up anything you tell them if you stand on a podium and shout it to them down a microphone. And I just thought that was really interesting. I really liked Penguin's like henchmen, like these guys from the circus or from the carnival or whatever in their sort of clown makeup and everything, because they look quite horrifying. But a lot of the time when they're on screen, and particularly during the violent scenes, the music is very carnival-like it's very playful and it's very like, and that's a very interesting thing that it does there with the visuals and the audio, because it's like your brain is hearing one thing but then seeing another, and it kind of makes it even creepier and a bit more disturbing. And I feel like a lot of this was going on. The whole look of it just like it was there to kind of unnerve you. And I think this is what Tim Burton does really, really well.
I've actually just got a question, because every time I watch this film, I'm never really sure. The circus folk, because like Batman is looking up on his computer and he's sort of looking at past newspaper articles about the missing circus folk. Is the idea that but then it said that they had a bird boy with them. Is the idea that they've sort of brought him up along with the penguins? Or have they just come into the picture later and gone, oh yeah, we'll hang out with this penguin man?
So what I always got from him researching the gang was that they were a sort of a traveling circus who were also some sort of organized criminal gang. But I don't know if they're meant to be both. And I always got that when he talks about the bird boy, that was the penguin. But then at the same time, he seems to have been raised by penguins.
Yeah, he's been raised by the penguins.
Yeah, but that's why I think the film it's so
But then
mad.
He must have learned English he can't have learned English from the penguins.
Well, they don't speak English, do they? Famously.
They don't. They won't learn.
They will not learn. They come over here and they go in our zoos. But
I mean, the big takeaway from this film really is be kind to animals. Because
Because you never know. You never know what might happen.
The cats will save you and the penguins will bring up your baby.
It's also got quite an environmental message as well, because this whole thing is drowning them in toxic waste, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's quite progressive for 1992, I guess. But back to what you said, Alice, that's one of the things that I really noticed this time around, which is it's got no subtlety whatsoever, has it? It's so mad. It's like between the script and the direction, I think I get the impression, and because I'm such a nerd, I've got a special edition DVD. So there's a documentary which is on all the Batman DVDs that I've got, and it goes on and it tracks the progress of each film. And in this one, I get the impression from what I've seen that they wanted to emulate the success of the first one so much, and Tim Burton wasn't sure about coming back, and they eventually went to him, just do whatever you want. And then he did, and it's like you got the most Tim Burton film. There's like a point where Batman's fighting clowns and a little man with a big skeleton head on a motorbike. And like, you have to check yourself and go, this is quite mad, actually. Like what I'm watching. And it's all set at Christmas. And it's just, it is mad. But I quite like that. It's a throwback to like a campier time in terms of Batman, I mean, in the 60s and that sort of thing. And I quite like the fact that in this day and age, particularly post Nolan trilogy and stuff, I think there is a lot about comic books which are used to be sort of political analogies or social analogies, whereas in this, it's just everything is what it is. So in other films, everything is explained. How did this happen? How did this happen? Where in this, Penguin's just got his umbrellas. He's just got them. He must have made them. Like, there's no explanation of how he's got an umbrella that hypnotizes people, an umbrella that could shoot people. It's just there. And I quite like that. I think that lack of exposition almost is its strength in a way, because you can't think about anything because you don't have time, because it's so mad. You've just got to embrace the wackiness of it.
Yeah, they've gone, we want him to have a massive duck. Don't know why, but there it is.
Yeah, he's in a big duck. Why? That's blown up. He's in a duck, isn't he? What? Yeah, well, he's going to blow up the city. What, using penguins with rocket launchers? Right. Okay.
Well, also, his evil plot makes no sense. It keeps changing. It's like, again, now I want to find my parents. Oh, no, actually, I want to be mayor. Oh, fuck that. I'm going to get all the newborns. No, fuck that. I'm going to blow it all up with penguins.
In a 2-hour film, he has 4 evil plans, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Where does Michael Keaton rank for you guys in terms of Batman? Where is he on the Batman scale?
I love Michael Keaton, and I feel like the first few times I saw this, first time I've seen both his films a lot. But I felt a bit like, he's a bit boring, but actually he's great. He's really understated. And he still has, every now and again, he still has that sort of Michael Keaton zaniness that sort of peeps in.
Mm.
And I love the romance with him and Selena Kyle. I think it's really good.
But you, Alice, because you've not seen that many Batman films, have you, from what you've told me?
No, it turns out I haven't really, and I thought I had, but no. So I have no issue with Michael Keaton as Batman whatsoever. I think he as an actor did a really, really good job. This was something I was going to leave for my dislikes, but I'll bring it up now because you've asked.
Oh.
You don't get enough Batman in this film, I don't think.
He's only in like half an hour, isn't he? Didn't someone count it? Yeah.
Of all the main characters, he's in there the least. You don't get any of his motivations. You don't get any of his kind of origin. For me, it is really much more about Selena, more about Catwoman, and it's her story. And then secondary to that, it's about Penguin. And then Batman he's like 4th or 5th or 6th sort of down the list of the characters that we really explore and really get to know in this film. I don't even know if I disliked that, because I did like what they did with the other characters so much. But it was something that I noticed. And every time he'd come on screen, I'd be like, oh yeah, Batman's in this film called Batman Returns. I forgot he was there. Do you know what I mean? I thought that was really interesting.
It's one of the main criticisms of the films, like historically, until Batman Begins. So Batman 89, this one, Forever, and Robin. It's sort of like what a lot of the fans would say is that he's a passenger in his own story. So it's like the Joker with Batman in it, and then it's the Penguin and Catwoman with Batman in it. And then, but I also agree that they use him sparingly. I mean, obviously, I don't know if you guys know this, but he is coming back as Batman in The Flash next year.
I'd heard. I thought
he?
this was a rumor.
So no. So
there
is a teaser trailer, and in it is his voice, and then he walks out onto the bat cave, and you see the back of his head. And I just, of all the comic book stuff that's coming out at the moment, I just went mental. I was just like,
you lose your mind.
It's Batman. Michael Keaton Batman. It was like so sad. But I can't wait to see him back because I think
that's so exciting.
It's great. I think Rosie is spot on when she says that there is a subtlety, like the way a lot of people criticize Christian Bale's Batman voice. Well, I noticed in this that Michael Keaton does do a Batman voice, but it's only slightly different, but it's enough to differentiate from Bruce Wayne. And I think that's really key to his performance. It is more subtle, but like Rosie said, with hints of that Keaton zaniness thrown in as well.
The funny thing about the whole Batman voice and Batman doing a voice is the mask is pretty, like, that covers a lot. That covers a lot of surface area, right? Superman ain't doing a voice. He just puts on a pair of glasses and expects everyone to be like, oh, who is this guy? He's totally different from who we just saw. Why isn't Superman doing a voice?
Or you can just...
That's what I want to know.
Superman puts no effort into it.
It's not asked, is he?
Not at all.
He's lazy, isn't he, Superman? I think that was what we've established here, is he's lazy.
Also, it does make you think that Batman is Bats, isn't he? Like, he's putting on a silly voice. He's got on his little mask and he's charging around town with his gadget. What a crazy bloke.
It's a bit mad, that, isn't it, really? When you think about the fact that it's got such mass appeal and that's what it is, a man who dresses up as a bat and goes around with bat-themed cars and bat-themed gadgets and stuff. Okay, so we'll move on to talking about things that we perhaps didn't like about the film or that we might change. I don't think there's going to be loads, but Rosie, is there anything you particularly change about it?
Well, it's more of a sort of, it niggles me that because Penguin destroys his reputation, so they think that Batman's evil and awful and has pushed the Ice Princess to her death, and that never really gets resolved. So I'm always at the end going, yeah, but how has he got his reputation back? I don't get it. That always is, so it's more of an irritation.
That's true. Actually, I've never even noticed that before.
And there's lots of loose ends that in the film that you go, okay, I'll let that pass. But that one always slightly annoys me. I think because I worry, I'm like, oh, everyone hates Batman. How will this change? And then it doesn't. It's just apparently fine.
Because if that happened in this day and age, there'd just be Twitter arguments. No, how do you know Batman didn't push the... I know Penguin was guilty, but there's nothing to say. Batman didn't push the Ice Princess.
Look at this tweet Batman did from 20 years ago.
Batman's cancelled. He's pushed the Ice Princess. I do think there's something to be said for, although I've said that the lack of exposition is a strength, in some senses. It's like one of mine is, where did they get the blueprints for the Batmobile? Like, they've just got them. They've just got the and I know apparently there is a deleted scene, but I think we'll include it then because they're sort of important to be like, there's just this mob of clown-related gangsters being like, we've just got these blueprints for this top secret Batmobile. Like, no explanation whatsoever. What about you, Alice?
So already touched on there that I feel like, there isn't enough Batman in there for me. I could have done with a bit more Batman, a bit more information about him, want to know a bit more about his character, about his motivations, etc. But also, Josh, I know I've mentioned it to you before, but Rosie, I've got a phobia of fish. And obviously in this film, Danny DeVito's Penguin has a fish, a raw dead fish, and then starts eating it. And then he's just like holding it in his hands and munching on it for quite
really
a
gross,
long
isn't it?
time. It felt like a lifetime, but it was probably only about 3 or 4 minutes. And that when I see that and when that happens, I'm like, oh fuck, and then I can't look, and then I'm like this. So then that just kind of throws me out of it and sort of threw me out of the out of the world and stuff. But I got back in there, so that was fine. But yeah, if I could change, I would just not have that scene. No need to have it. Just don't have it, please.
Can I say, in defense of his lack of backstory, that is sort of dealt with in the first Tim Burton one. With
maybe this is what I'm missing.
Yeah, with Jack Nicholson. But you are right in that I think it is something like he's only in half an hour if you count up all his minutes that he's in that film, which is a very small amount of time.
Definitely, for a film that's called Batman, certainly. Also, the other thing was, so when Max pushes Selina out the window, So then he assumes then that she is dead. He can look at her. There she is. She's on the floor. She's dead. And then he just fucks off and doesn't tend to it whatsoever. It's like, she's not just a nobody. Like, she works for quite a high profile man in the city. If someone finds her body, someone's going to know who that is. And this looks suspicious as fuck. And I just feel like he would have sorted it out. Do you know what I mean? He would have got his henchman or something. He'd be like, right, go and grab that body and throw it in the river or something. And he just didn't do anything. And I was like, I don't think he would have just left that loose end and not
like
tied it up.
He's too clever.
You know
He's too clever for that sort of thing.
I think so. So I didn't quite buy that.
He's probably too busy thinking about his insane wig and eyebrows.
Maybe.
That is a wig and some eyebrows. I mean, he should. If they did Academy Awards for acting in bad wigs and eyebrows, Christopher Walken in this. Oh.
And his son doing the Christopher Walken impression, which I always appreciate.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's like, how would you play Christopher Walken's son? Just do an impression of Christopher Walken. Right, okay.
That was it, though, for me, for dislikes. I feel like on the whole, I was really, really impressed and I enjoyed so many different aspects of it. You can see such hard work had gone into it. It's really well thought out. It's really well designed. Yeah, really enjoyed it overall. What about you, Josh? Anything else that you didn't quite like or that you would change?
Only a little bit of what I was saying in terms of the exposition leading on from what Rosie was saying. In terms of it as a comic book adaptation, because I like the source material, I have a few issues. The main one, the first one, which I'm not that bothered about, is they changed Catwoman's origin. But I'm not one of these sort of comic book nerds.
What is Catwoman's origin in the
She's just
the
a cat
comics?
burglar. Well, thing is, the comics is every time it depends who's writing the character because sometimes they just change it. But I think the mainly accepted one is that she's a cat burglar who dresses like a cat. But I'm not really bothered. Yeah, but I'm not really.
That's it?
I'm not really bothered. I quite like the fact that they've just gone, do you know what? Cat superpowers. What are the superpowers? Like 9 lives.
Being really sexy. Doing this.
And she suddenly can kick stuff and things.
Yeah. Flips and kicks. That's about it.
It's very silly, isn't it, at the beginning, though, that we're supposed to believe Michelle Pfeiffer is this dowdy secretary who no one notices.
Glasses,
like,
innit?
Oh,
just glasses.
It's like she's all that Batman style.
Yeah.
It's like,
She's so ugly and boring. How could anyone ever fancy her? It's like, oh, it's Michelle Pfeiffer.
Look at this plain woman who's going to get cat superpowers. Because she's got glasses on and a hair up.
You can't get a date.
And she leaves herself voicemails. Like,
oh yeah.
Have you ever left yourself a voicemail?
No, not yet. It hasn't got
I email myself.
Yeah, I email myself sometimes.
I email myself. That's probably the modern day equivalent.
I did have an alarm once, which was myself telling myself to get up.
Oh my god, that's so weird.
It didn't work.
That is so Selena Kyle.
Yeah, I know.
It's like so Selena.
Such a Selena Kyle thing to do.
Then my boss pushed me out a window and
oh my god. Did the cat save you? Was it the cat? Or was it the penguins?
My only other issue that's still not quite fixed, apart from maybe once in Batman films, which is that Batman seems to kill people. And Batman's whole thing is that he doesn't kill people. But in this, he pushes a dude down a sewer with a bomb strapped to him.
Sick.
And he kills, doesn't he kill loads of people in the Jack Nicholson one as well?
Yeah, he pretty much kills the Joker in the Jack Nicholson one.
But I think he definitely breaks some arms. But I like how in this one at the end where he goes, he says to Catwoman, he's like, don't worry, we'll take him to the police. And she goes, the law's not for us. And he's like, yes, it is. And you go, Batman, you're really violent. You kill people. Who are you kidding?
I'd love to watch a version of this film that is just used to the Batman. Come on.
Let's go on, Batman.
Yeah.
Mixed messages.
So we will move on to talking about the critical reception then before we'll decide if we think this is slightly a forgotten gem, as Rosie says it is. So before we go on, Alice, how do you think it did? Rosie, how do you think it did? Alice, you go first.
I mean, I reckon it probably did quite well. It is a very well-made film. I think some of the performances in there are just fantastic. Tim Burton is usually always a hit as well. So I do reckon it did quite well. I'll say sort of towards the high 7s. So if we're talking sort of 7.8, 7.9, but then I wouldn't be surprised if it perhaps made it to an 8. But I'm going to be slightly more reserved. I would say 7.9 or 79% Rotten Tomatoes wise, I reckon.
Okay. How about you, Rosie? How do you think it did sort of critically?
I I mean, I would have thought it would do well. I think I vaguely remember there being some kind of criticism that it was a bit too dark and violent. But I mean, no one would have that problem now, would they, with Batman?
No, that's true. Okay, so, well, let's have a look then. So, looking at the IMDb, at time of recording, it gets 7 out of 10, bang on. On the Rotten Tomatoes, the audience give it 73%, and in a rare occurrence, the critics give it 80%. We don't often get critics giving it more than the audience, but so it's about sort of what you were saying, Alice, maybe a little bit lower, but then if you even out that 80 with the 70 and 73, we're talking sort of mid sevens. Now, what do we think? Is that underrated? Is it appropriately rated? What do you think?
I mean, I would say not for once, to be fair, I'll give them some credit, but the critics are bang on there. Yeah, I reckon. Yeah. I'm really surprised at the IMDb score and a little bit surprised at the audience score. But I do believe what Rosie was just saying then. I did see that when it came out, there was some criticism of it. And a lot of people thought that it was the certification was too low. And that they were like, oh, younger children are going to see this. I think it was PG-13 in America. And they were like, oh, it's far too violent and a little bit too sexual for this as well. So maybe that
there's the black goo that comes out of Penguin's mouth, which I think deserves a high rating.
Yeah. Oh, forgot about that.
Is that ink? What is that? Disgusting. Has he got black blood or is it ink? Or
it's really gross. To me, it's what happens if you eat too much fish.
Raw fish. Maybe. Yeah.
So I would say if that's evening out, I would say they're maybe appropriately rated. What do you think, Rosie?
I don't know. I mean, I'd give it a very high score, and so, but I'm also like, because did you say the audience it was slightly less? Buck up, audience! Come on, no quality when it's staring you in the face.
I would agree with Rosie. I think those ratings are quite high, but I do think there is an element with this film of it being quite a forgotten gem. I think because of the nature of the fact that comic book films are now massive and we get a Batman film every 2 years or something, I wonder how long it'll be before people stop going back to these. Now, I love these ones. I have so much affection for them, and I know some people don't because they might like the more realistic take of the Nolan ones or the other more recent ones. But I just think there's something about the two Burton films, and this was the one that we're talking about, which is that they capture a certain look and feel of the character that I think is really spot on, and I do think it's a forgotten gem, so I'm going to put it out there and say I agree with Rosie, forgotten gem. So there we go, another Christmas episode in the underrated / forgotten gem pile, should we say, Alice?
Yeah, that's definitely a pile that exists. I think we've got a few in there.
We've just made it up. It's in all the different piles of films we've got. Thank you very much for coming on, Rosie. Thank you for joining us and talking about Batman Returns.
Thank you for having me.
So where can our listeners look out for you? What have you got coming up? What can they look out for?
Find me on Twitter on @RosieIsAHolt. But I'm working on a show, and if any of your listeners live in London, I'm doing a work in progress at the Vaults Festival on, I think, the 6th of March. I think it's the 6th of March. It'll be on the Vaults Festival website.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure we'll put that out on all the social medias and stuff as well when that's coming up. And I would say as well, do check out Rosie on Twitter and Instagram and all that, because I must say, Rosie, some of your videos are just hilarious.
I mean, if you like laughing and if you like funny things, guys, definitely check her out on Twitter. Hilarious.
Yeah. And also, do use a little bit, which what I always like to do when it's people doing videos that are quite subtle. Just have a little click in the replies and just see what state the world's in.
Yes, because that's also fun and entertaining in its own way, isn't it?
It's the same when we had Fergus Craig on. It's exactly the same in his videos. Click on the replies and just look at people who don't understand what parody and satire is. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Rosie Holt, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, guys.
Well, there we go. Another Christmas episode done for another year. Thank you very much to Rosie for joining us. I think all that remains to be said is if you'd like to get in touch with us, the email address is filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. We're on all the social medias where you can find us if you just search just Films and That Pod. And like Rosie said, you can find her on Rosie Is a Holt on Twitter and Instagram. Do make sure to check her videos out because they're pretty damn good. I think Merry Christmas is in order, Alice.
Merry Christmas and goodwill to all, men and women.
And it's a Merry Christmas and a goodbye and a cheerio from me. Bye.
Bye.